So now is our time for our message from Reverend Patricia Keel. Yay. And the title is Fire Horse Power. We all should have worn red today. Or purple. I'll come down the path, yeah. I think this is mine. I brought books, but who knows? My 12 Power book. I've got like 5 of them, and they all have all these little notes that I'm not using right now. So, you know, it's Fire Horse year. Do you know that? People are aware of that? And it's part of a Chinese zodiac. And what they do is every year they have an animal and an element. And this year the animal is the horse, and the element is fire. And I thought, when I was just thinking about the talk today, we're talking about 2 of the 12 powers. And the power we're talking about is the power of zeal, which reminded me of fire, like kind of the energy of fire and how fire can be so powerful. And also the power of power, which we're going to discover is really located in our voice. But power has that strength like a horse. There's movement involved. And so I thought this is a perfect kind of framing for my talk today, the idea of fire horse power. And as I was thinking about it, you know, we're living in such kind of crazy times right now. I mean, there's just so much going on. And as a unity minister, I don't get political, and I really rarely refer specifically to things. But I'm so aware, just in my own personal relationships and talking to people, at the different levels of inner conflict that is happening in our world and that we're impacted by. And, you know, whether it's politics, what's going on, you know, war in the Middle East, whether we're dealing with environmental issues, you know, whether we're dealing with the economy and how that's impacting us in our everyday life. There are layers and layers of the outer world that are impacting us in really powerful ways. And as unity students, because you're sitting in these seats, and we're all unity students or unitics at some level. We're in a process of learning. It's always about learning more and more. And the learning is about learning who we are. Like, who am I as a divine being? You know, we talked about it is well with my soul. We also talked about I love myself the way I am. There's this quality that unity offers us, and it's a capacity to begin to know ourselves at a deeper level than how we know ourselves in the outer. And so the teachings on the 12 powers, I think, are really important for us to anchor into every year. And I try as your minister to bring these teachings in every year as a reminder to each one of us of the qualities and capacities that exist within us. And also how we might use those qualities as our awareness builds of what's actually possible for us, how we might use those capacities and qualities to guide our way in our days and weeks in the world, how we can be the ones who can bring a sense of calm peace to places where there's conflict, whether it's interpersonal or even in the bigger world. And I feel like these 2 powers today, I'm calling them energizing powers, these are really, really critical for us to own and to anchor into our awareness in the times that we're living right now. And so I loved your prayer, but I'm listening and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. You know, listen to the message and get the word. But I'm exhorting in a way because I feel like the power of zeal and the power of power that are part of the package that the divine has gifted us are really two of the most extraordinary powers that we can bring into our practice in the world. Because both of these powers are vibratory powers. And if we're aware, we live in an energy field, don't we? Everything is energy. Everything is vibrating all the time. And so the way we personally vibrate and the way we send vibration out in the world has an impact all around us. And we talked about the power of faith in January. Meg brought us a wonderful message on the power of imagination. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did a talk on the unifying powers of love and wisdom. And all of those powers are powers that we can hold inside. And yes, we can use them before we're moving out and vibrating in the world, whether we're taking action or speaking. But there's a different quality to those powers relative to the power of zeal and the power of power. So I want to explore it a little bit with you, and then we'll do a meditation. And I thought I'd actually use a meditation from Charles Fillmore's book, The 12 Powers of Man, which is kind of interesting. So when we think about these powers, the power of zeal first, I want to just bring this awareness, because the power of zeal, Fillmore, has identified these 12 powers. And just in case there's somebody here who hasn't ever heard of the 12 powers, I just want to go through what they are. Fillmore identified these powers as having points within the physical body. So he was very much, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, co-founders of Unity, they were not just always up airy-fairy in the realm of spirituality. They talked all the time about the realm of spirit, soul, and body. And for them, soul was the aspect of mind, was our qualities of thoughts and feelings. That was the element they identified as soul. So when he identified these 12 capacities within us, he identified places in the physical body that were held, he would call it like the seat of. So the seat of faith was in the center of the brain, near the pineal gland. The seat of imagination is more in the front brain. The seat of spiritual understanding, which Marjorie Brock is going to be speaking at the end of the month, is in the front brain. And the seat of will, which will be Reverend Dahlia in a couple of weeks, she'll be speaking about those two powers, very, very important powers when we're making decisions. Those are also up in the head. Moving down from the head, we get the seat of zeal or enthusiasm, which is located in the medulla oblongata, the place right in the back of the brainstem, which connects to all sorts of organs right into the vagus nerve. It's a very powerful energy center in the physical body. And the power of power, Charles Fillmore identified at the root of the tongue, so right in the very back of the tongue. So we've moved down, we're down into the head, but we're into vibration right now. We're not vibrating too much with the powers of will and understanding, but once we get into this power of zeal and power, we're into a place where we can really vibrate and shift energy in the world. As we move down into the body, we move to heart and to the level of heart and the solar plexus. And heart is, of course, love. And the solar plexus represents the sun, the energy of divine wisdom, the grace of wisdom. And moving below that is the power of divine order, which Sonia spoke about a couple of weeks ago, Reverend Sonia, and the power of strength, which I'm speaking about next week. Those are kind of balancing powers located in the abdomen area. And finally, the power of life and renunciation, the power that we say no to. I eliminate, I say no to this, I renounce it. And life, I say yes to it. And those are located in the reproductive and excretory organs of the body. So moving through the whole body, we activate all these different powers. So today we're going to be looking We're going to be looking at this region around the throat and thinking about these powers of zeal and imagination. Just physically, it's important to understand how deeply connected these powers are. You know, the medulla is connected right into that area where the vagus nerve goes, and the vagus nerve connects into many of the organs in the body. The root of the tongue is right at the very back of the throat. And Fillmore says this aspect of our power source literally connects to our eyes, our ears, our nose. It connects to everything into the head as a way that we are able to vibrate power through the power of the word. In the beginning was the word, right? The logos. So how we understand these two powers and how they are connected is a really important part of being able to use them properly. And you know, it's interesting that Fillmore talked about how important it was. I want to find this one quote. He talks about power. It's interesting because it's the power of power. We have 12 powers, and one of the powers is the power of power. It's connected to our speaking. It's connected to what we put out in terms of vibratory energy when we speak. But he goes farther back when he really defines what this power is all about. And he talks about it as dominion. And he's basically saying we have authority over what's going to come out. We have dominion over this. And I want to read a quote for him because I think this is really important as we begin to understand the relationship between zeal and power, as Fillmore understood it. He says, and this is from his book, The 12 Powers of Man, in the chapter on power or dominion. He says, man, and just translate that if you're a woman. I'm not going to get fuzzy on this thing. Man does not exercise the power of his spiritual nature because he lacks understanding of its character and of his relation to the originating mind in which he exists. So basically what he's saying right there is we don't really know how to use all our spiritual powers. We don't know how to use any of these 12 powers because we don't understand the connection that we have with the divine, with the mind of God, with the collective intelligence of the universe, with source energy, whatever it is. So because we don't understand this relationship, we don't know how to use these powers that are innate within us. He says, from divine mind, man inherits power over the forces of his mind. In truth, power over all ideas. A quickening from on high must precede man's realization of his innate control of thought and feeling. This is where the quickening is the important piece right here when Fillmore's talking about this. Because we think we can have control over what we're going to say. We think we have control over our thoughts and our feelings. But much of the time we get caught up in what's going on around and we're in a reactive mode, right? Or we're in a protective mode or a defensive mode. We haven't experienced the quickening that he's talking about. And the quickening is what happens when the power of zeal is activated. Because the power of zeal can be translated as enthusiasm, en theos, the divine energy. The quickening is when we open ourselves to the presence and power of the divine. And until we've had that experience of the quickening, the power that we have to use our voice, to speak words of truth, to speak calm into a state of chaos, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the spiritual understanding, we don't have the energy, the zeal energy of the divine until we've had that experience of this quickening. And it's really interesting. Everybody's kind of, is this making any sense at all? Okay, good. You guys are, I'm just looking out there, I'm like going, okay. So this is really important, and if you think in the Bible, I don't have a big Bible story to bring, but if you'll remember, Jesus told his disciples, after I leave, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and you'll be able to do whatever it is that you need to do to carry my message forward. The Holy Spirit will come upon you. The Holy Spirit coming upon you is the quickening. It's when we have that experience of being fully immersed and literally feeling embodied by the divine presence. And what happened for the disciples 50 days after Jesus passed was Pentecost. 50 Pentecost is from 5. The quickening came for them. The descent of the Holy Spirit came for them. Wind and tongues of fire came. And what happened? Anybody remember? They all started speaking in tongues, meaning they were able to communicate whatever needed to be communicated to anyone who had ears to listen. It wasn't about being a crazy person and babbling. It was about having the presence and the power to speak to anyone in the field. And this is the same capacity that we literally have. What Jesus said would happen for his disciples is available to all of us. And instead of, using the fire and kind of burning our energy, like, the word fanatic, right? The zealot is a fanatic. Overuse of zeal can cause that energy of a zealot, and there's too much fire, and things get burned. Or we can have that quickening experience, which causes us, in a sense, to kind of move into a space of spiritual calm, a place where we feel the presence. And from that place, the words that are being called forth for us to speak literally are ours, just like they were for the disciples at Pentecost. We're available, we're open and present. So it's really a powerful thing for us to begin to understand how these 12 powers can be. They're not just a quality. It's not just saying, oh, I have zeal, or oh, I have power. It's actually a way that we express through our thoughts and words the truth of our spiritual nature. And it becomes an expression of who we are. We've talked about this before, but this idea that we carry a vibrational field around us. And even before we speak the words, we're carrying those vibrations based on the thoughts that we're thinking in our mind. And they tell us from heart math that we carry, I feel like it's like a virtual donut all around our body, 3 feet around us, that's an energy field that other people pick up on. Imagine when we speak words, how much farther the energy of those words go. And it's not about what the words are. It's not about the letter of the law. It's about the spirit from which they're held and spoken. And that's what the power of zeal and this ability to allow this quickening to be part of our experience. It's why Unity invites us to go into prayer and meditation as a daily practice. We won't get quickened if we're always out, pushing and speaking all the time. It's a really, really powerful awareness for us to have. There's also an important piece of this use of our zeal, our capacity of zeal, the quickening that happens, and our use of the power of the word through the throat, because the back of the throat, it activates the vocal cords. It also activates the thyroid. I mean, when we speak, you're activating all this energy in this part of the body, it's also so important that we are guided by the power of love and wisdom. We have a quickening, but we bring these other spiritual powers in our awareness of the unifying power of love, of how easy it is for us to feel a deep sense of connection with others, or the power of wisdom. And if you remember when I talked about wisdom a few weeks ago, one of the first things that we were reminded of is, in order to really exercise our power of wisdom, sometimes we need to unlearn some of the things that we believe to be true. And I think this is really important for us in the world that we're living in right now, because it's so easy for us to kind of get hooked on an idea and allow our belief in an idea to be running the energy of our power and our zeal, instead of opening up mind and heart to be present to what is being called forth in the world. We are all being called in extraordinary ways right now to speak truth to power. We're being called to be an antidote to this self-centered power that we see in the world. Fillmore even talks about it, and I almost brought a quote, but he talked about how the misuse of the power, the misuse of the faculty of power, leads to people who are looking for greed, money, and he literally called them liars. He said, we live in a world where this is how people are showing up in the world. So being aware that we don't go in that self-centered nature with the energy of our zeal, and with the words that we choose to speak, or the silence that we choose to hold in the moment. There's an interesting, I guess it's a science, it's called cymatics, cymatics, cymatics. And it's about how sound creates shape. And so being aware of our tone, the very tone of our voice, and how that literally brings shape to the words that we're speaking and to the experience that is in front of us. So super powerful for us to really be mindful of these two extraordinary gifts that we've been given. The gift of spiritual quickening through the power of zeal, and how we activate that by being in the stillness, being in the silence, connecting more and more deeply to the presence and power of the divine, through all the other powers that we've been given, through love and wisdom, through strength and divine order, and through a deep sense of faith. And from that quickening of the zeal within us, we then have the capacity to really claim dominion about the words that we're going to speak. We can become more and more aware and mindful of the thoughts that we're thinking and what's going on in our inner life before we move out into the world and speak in the world. So I'd love to just close today with this meditation, which is Fillmore's. It's at the end of his chapter on zeal. And he says, Simon was the zealot, from his throne at the medulla, imparts special energy to the ears, to the eyes, to the nose, to the mouth, and to the nervous system. This is a massive energy that this energy from the medulla is connecting us with. So all the head, and then also the nervous system. And so this is a short meditation that Fillmore has put in his book, The 12 Powers. So we're going to turn the lights out and just invite you to put things aside. I invite you to take a few deep and conscious breaths, relaxing into the body. And for the moment, put aside any to-do list you have or any particular concern you may be chewing on, any challenge, and just allow this experience to be a moment to sit with one of the elders who co-created this unity movement, Mr. Charles Fillmore, Charles and Myrtle, so powerful. Charles received guidance from his time in prayer. He says, to help Simon do his work, I invite you to center your attention for a moment at the base of your brain and quietly affirm that infinite energy and intelligence are pouring forth in zeal and enthusiasm. And then follow in your imagination a matrix of nerves that lead out from the medulla, the back of the neck, to the eyes, affirming all the time the presence and power of energy and intelligence are now manifesting in my eyes. And now follow the imagination from the medulla to the ears and affirm the presence and power of energy and intelligence is now manifesting in my ears. Be you open. And now, leading out from the medulla to the nose, affirm the energy and intelligence, the presence and power of divine manifesting in the nose as the purity of spirit enfolds you. Now follow the imagination leading out from the medulla to the mouth and carry the life current to the root of the tongue with the thought of freedom. At the root of the tongue is situated the throne of another disciple, Philip. And when you carry the Zeal current from its medulla center and connect it with the throne of Philip, a mighty vibration is set up that affects the whole nervous system. And in this moment, you strengthen your voice, you revitalize your teeth, you impart energy to your digestion, and you activate the living spirit of the divine presence in your body. So take another few deep and conscious breaths. Feeling a sense of readiness, quickening and being poised, holding that living spirit with the power of zeal, a power to create, a power to claim dominion over thoughts and feelings, and to speak words of truth, of love, of wisdom, and of peace. Offering gratitude for the blessing of these teachings from our founder, Charles Fillmore, and for the grace and power of the ministry of Jesus as a way shower for each one of us. We offer our gratitude for this moment in time present in the name and through the power of that living Spirit, the living Spirit of love and grace. And so it is, and gently, gently, as you feel guided, breathing into the body, feeling the movement of the breath. When you're ready, you can bring your awareness back into the physical body and gently open your eyes.